May it please Your Royal Highness, it is an honor to welcome you all to the first International Conference on Equitable Education, All for Education. 30 years after the first Education for All meeting in Jom Tien, Thailand, I feel extremely encouraged that we remain committed to advancing this initiative, of which unites us once again at this conference to share practices and knowledges. Today, Thailand Equitable Education Fund, in collaboration with Ministry of Education, Ministry of Interior, Ministry of Social Development and Human Security, UNESCO, UNICEF, and Save the Children, organized this special 2 days event to promote equity-based basic education for underserved children. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the conference is uniquely designed to be a hybrid event where the opening ceremony is on site and the rest of the sessions will be conducted online. We are pleased to have here with us live high officials from ASEAN countries via Zoom. In this big screen, in this room, we have participation of high officials from Brunei Darussalam, Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, Myanmar, the Philippines, and Singapore. We also, as of this morning, have over 2,100 participants from 72 countries registered to join the conference online. Thailand's Equity Education Fund, which is co-host of this event, was set up 2 years ago to address the hurdles of access to quality education for disadvantaged children and youth living in Thailand. Being young and small in size, we are hopeful that we can be part of the jigsaw in improving Thai education. The EF's strategy is to act as a catalyst through research and innovation, new approaches, and engagement with our players in the value chain of education. This means our players from grassroots, communities, policymakers, and key national and international players must join hands in improving education for our children, especially for the poor and the disadvantaged ones. As we know, the range of issues of equitable education are broad and complex. Yet the problems of learning and teaching quality, school resources, poverty, malnutrition, domestic violence, and school bullying are common among many countries, be they poor or rich. The COVID-19 pandemic has moreover shown how deeply unprepared the education system is in coping with disruptions. As a result, disadvantaged students are even more vulnerable and are at greater risk of being left behind. We gather here today. We take part and attempt to tackle these daunting problems. We come to learn from one another, share expertise, exchange insights, and forge new partnerships so that we can speed up our progress towards achieving education for all. As such, I hope that this conference will serve as a compass in guiding us to where we should go next, what we should do, and remind us that we are not alone. Your Royal Highness worked in the past 40 years on improving education and well-being of disadvantaged children has set an example for us to follow. We are inspired by Your Royal Highness' aspiration and dedication. As such, I hope we can continue to work towards our common goal of achieving equitable education for all. May it please Your Royal Highness.
May it please Your Royal Highness. May I express my gratitude to Your Royal Highness for graciously presiding over the opening ceremony of the International Conference on Equitable Education, All for Education. Your Royal Highness has dedicated time and efforts to educational provision long before the World Conference on Education for All was organized in Jomtien, 1990. When the high-level group on Education for All meeting was organized to commemorate the 20th anniversary of the Jomtien Declaration, Your Royal Highness also graciously presided over the meeting. We are so grateful for Your Royal Highness' commitment to providing education for all. Since this year is the 30th anniversary on the Education for All efforts, this International Conference on Equitable Education, All for Education, takes place in Bangkok to acknowledge the progress of the Education for All efforts. At the same time, this conference also creates an opportunity to explore why equality in education is still a current challenge for many countries. This conference provides an opportunity for all, including the civil society, to propose policies and best practices on equitable education. It is high time for the public sector and the civil society to work closely and move forward together. During the past 30 years, the Ministry of Education of Thailand has strongly committed to fulfill the Education for All, or EFA, goals. For example, the 15 Years Free Education Project was launched in 2009 to ensure a basic education of quality for all and to increase level of attainment from kindergarten to the end of upper secondary level. Thailand established over 9,000 community learning centers and over 400,000 villages libraries and literacy curriculum to promote literacy among adults. To reach the vulnerable children, the Equitable Educational Fund was established in 2018 to increase equality in education by providing financial support for disadvantaged students. Education is viewed as the most important mechanism to achieve all 17 goals in the UN 2030 agenda. However, we all have a long way to go towards the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals for SDG 4, which aim to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. So there are many things to do, and International Conference is one of the consolidated efforts that all sectors join their hands in making it possible. In line with the new normal, this International Conference on Equitable Education, All for Education, fully embraces virtual participation. A large number of our speakers and participants are joining us online and through social media. It is the situation which we would have not imagined just a few months ago, but which is now more common and is part of our new normal. This is how we will have to think about how education might have to be delivered in the post-COVID-19 world. May I please Your Royal Highness.
It is my great pleasure to preside at the first International Conference on Equitable Education, All for Education. The conference is very timely. This is because of the COVID-19 pandemic has made equitable education, being a centered issue, has become an urgent issue. The pandemic has widened the gap of equity in education around the world and has made the vulnerable and disadvantaged children more vulnerable. Thus, this conference is important for all of us to work together to help children who receive the most impact to have access to education. Education is a fundamental human right. With this notion, the journey in pursuing equal access to education for all goal, first started in 1990 in Jomtien, Thailand. I'm very pleased that Thailand hosted that event, bringing together leading educators and policymakers from around the world. Since then, equity is recognized as a critical factor. Countries around the world and many international organizations have embarked on their own journey based on their priority needs, country context, and political will to foster inclusive and promote equity education for all children. After 30 years, the challenges in equitable education still remains. The most common struggle among the challenges is to reach the unreached. For me, I have started my journey 40 years ago. I strongly believe that fundamental to learning involves not only education, but equally important nutrition, health, appropriate skills, and environmental together. It is important to fulfill children's basic needs first before they can learn, and learning should include both formal and non-formal learning. Learning and education should be viewed as more than just knowledge acquisition. It should be viewed as skill for lifelong learning so that the disadvantaged children are able to function in the society and have better quality of life. I believe all children must be given equal opportunity to learn. I believe that there is more than one approach to ensure that children attain abilities, skills, and values needed for quality of life and work. I believe it can be achieved through the power of partnership. I believe it is the responsibility of everyone. I am pleased to share with you more on my endeavor on this issue in my presentation this morning. We have come a long way since Education for All in Jomtien, Thailand in 1990. EFA has transformed into Millennium Development Goals, Education for Sustainable Development, and now Sustainable Development Goals. I am glad to see that the commitment is still there. This reflects in the gathering of this international conference that I see many think tank educators, leading organizations from around the world sharing their experiences, knowledge, and aspiration. It is a good opportunity for everyone to find a way to eliminate inequity in education. We can learn from each other practices to move forward to achieve the goal of equity with quality in education, which expands and builds on Sustainable Development Goal 4 in 2030. We are in the better position than 30 years ago. We should make the best use of our knowledge and experiences. I would like to thank the Princess Mahadagri Award Foundation, Education Equity Fund, the Ministry of Education, Ministry of Interior, the Ministry of Social and Human Security, UNESCO, UNICEF, and Save the Children for organizing this conference. I wish the conference a success. I now declare open the first international conference on equitable education, All for Education. Thank you.